Speaking Human.
Today on Speaking Human, we recall how brands from the past envision the future and share a couple of our own marketing visions for the 2020s.
Speaking Human.
Welcome to Speaking Human, where we simplify the world of marketing for humans. I'm Shad Conley, and with me is my co-host, Patrick Jeber. And Patrick, 2020 is finally here. You know what that means. We finally caught up with the future.
Well, Shad, technically, we're always chasing the future, right? If you think about it. We're never really in the future. Right now, we're in the present. As soon as I say something, even though the next thing I say is going to be in the future, what I've just said is now technically in the past, right? So, if we want to get technical and scientific about it.
Which we always do, because this is a technical and scientific podcast. It's what we're known for. It's our calling card.
It is. Engineers, architects, scientific surgeons.
It's our key audience. But you're right. We're always tiptoeing the line between present, future, and past. The amazing thing about time. But, 2020, it's just one of those years where it feels very futuristic as you say it. For those of us who remember, those of us old people remember when it turned 2000. It's not quite that big. That was a big one with, Y2K and everything like that. That really felt like we were diving headfirst into the future. 2020 is not quite to that level, but, it's kind of in the same ballpark.
Yeah, I agree with that. But, every couple decades, you've got this huge lift or this idea that things are going to be different.
Yeah, I would probably say 2050. That feels like the next big one. That's the one we're going to hit where we're going to be like, well, now we're in the future. But the funny thing is, you have this concept in your mind that 20 years or 25 years from now is so far ahead. And that's so much time. Things are going to be so different. It's going to be crazy. That's the funny thing about watching that All Sport commercial that we're going to play a clip of from 1996, because at the time the thought was, 25 years from now, who knows what's going to happen? The Olympics could be crazy. There could be a dolphin swim event and a 1-ton power lift. Who knows? Your imagination just goes wild. But no, the Olympics now are pretty much the exact same as they were 25 years ago. Not much has changed at all, right?
Well, with the exception of surfing, skateboarding, and rock climbing or something that they've just added.
So the dolphin swim is not in yet, as far as we know, but you're still practicing, right?
It should be, and I have been practicing.
You do that leap out of the water that I've just never seen anything like.
That totally reminds me of Don't Mess with the Zohan when he does the dolphin swim.
Yeah, great underrated movie.
Highly underrated.
There's a MoMA episode waiting to happen right there.
Yeah.
I'm Jim McKay with another update from the 2020 Global Games. Little Jacqueline Keller captured the gold today on the highly uneven bars, while Austria's gentle giant Milos dominated the 1-ton power lift. The highlight of the day so far was the record-breaking 300-meter dolphin relay.
The world of sports has evolved since all sport. Now with B vitamins, athletes need to unlock carbohydrate energy. It's more than a thirst quencher, it's a body quencher.
Coming up later, the graduated hurdles.
Oddly enough, though, all sport thirst quencher, not a thing anymore.
Yeah, who would have thought? Didn't even make it to the future that they were predicting.
All sport might not be there, but the dolphin swim will be.
In the alternate reality they predicted, they were the biggest sports drink. Just didn't happen. It's a whole different timeline. So speaking of predictions for the future, there was a USA Today article recently that was headlined 20 predictions for 2020. That included some predictions dating back decades from academics, futurists, and government agencies for some things that would happen by the year 2020. Now, these weren't your kind of crazy predictions for the most part. Most of them were pretty close to some things that did happen or could have happened or didn't quite happen. Looking over this list, which we'll link to in the show notes, what popped out to you? What things did you think would have happened by now or should have happened by now?
I will say this. You know me, Shad. I love science and technology, so most of my observations are biased towards those. If you would have asked me when I was a kid, number 15 on that list that humans will set foot on Mars would have been my favorite of the predictions. Mm-hmm. And that's something more about the idea that we would be working together as a planet to achieve some otherworldly goal. It's the sci-fi nerd in me, the whole Star Trek, we're all going towards a common goal and working together collaboratively. That part of me as a kid I would have loved and wished or thought would happen by now.
Yeah, and that one we're not all that close to. Setting foot on Mars, I don't know how far away we are from that. My first thought was Schwarzenegger went there in Total Recall, so I had to look up, when did that movie actually take place? Not till 2084, so we got a while to catch up with Total Recall.
Yeah, that was a colony or an outpost on Mars where you could go and people were traveling there commercially. To get to that point, I could see that another 50 years, 60 years before that happens. But as an idea, as a kid, I would have liked that. And then as I got older, I think I focused more inward as opposed to outer space. And I wanted to see things like number 7, self-driving cars and computers that are invisible. Number 2 on that list, computers that assist you in tasks. Number 11. Those are the things I think about Minority Report if we're going to movies and some of the technological advancements in that movie. The older I get, the more skeptical I get about those feats because it takes a lot of infrastructure, for example, for self-driving cars to make those things happen. But could it? Yeah, I just think it'll just take a huge push at some point to make it possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, self-driving cars was the one that stuck out to me because we are close on that. I mean, the technology is pretty much there. It's a matter of working out the bugs. I think it's also from a legislation and overcoming barriers of fear standpoint, that could take a while to actually have them on the road and make that a mainstream thing, But there was talk at one point, they're going to be on the road by 2020. Not so long ago, just a few years ago, the car companies were saying that. So we are close on that. Mm-hmm. It's funny that like in the 60s, people were like, well, we're going to have flying cars by 2020. I don't know if flying cars are ever going to really happen. The control of airspace, all that stuff. I just think there's too much logistically to that, realistically, if we're trying to think about it. But self-driving cars, I believe in, and that's something I really want to see in my lifetime. I thought we would have been closer to that by now. Also on this list, they mentioned cars will go months without refueling because of hydrogen power and stuff like that. So that's another thing, like you think about, wow, that would be really cool. I wish we were closer on that. We have hybrid vehicles and electric, and I think even that technology should be farther ahead than it is right now.
I agree. I think there's like 2 trains of thought here for me. And one is the things that are relatively possible within a decade or 2. And then there's the stuff that I think could happen, like flying cars. I agree totally with you. I think we're really far off from that. But a couple hundred years from now, yeah, I could totally see that, where there's that advancement, especially when you're talking about advancement of space travel and things like that. I could see it happening at some point.
Yeah, I'd see more like air shuttles than I would see, I think, individual flying cars. I just think that just seems like total chaos to me.
If I really had my way, I'd just say scientists could figure out teleportation. Then we don't have to worry about any of that, right?
Exactly. Which would be amazing. You could just go anywhere, anytime. Vacations, so quick, so easy.
It would change everything about the world, really, because instantaneous gratification of being somewhere else.
No doubt. The last thing I'll mention on there that I feel like should definitely be possible, completely is possible, but there's a lot of reasons it's not happening. Humans will vote from home electronically. Mm-hmm. Should have definitely happened by now. There's a lot of fear. Another reason this hasn't happened by now and probably won't happen for a long time. And there's good reasons for that and probably bad reasons for that, but something I definitely thought you would have seen by now given where we're at technologically.
Yeah, the word that I would pinpoint in what you just said is fear. Skepticism and fear, I think, is the thing that keeps a lot of these advancements from taking hold, right? I go back to 20 years ago, people saying online banking, I'd never do that. It's not secure. I would need a paper trail. And look at people now. I mean, now people do all their banking online. Not everyone, obviously, but it's way more acceptable and mainstream than it was.
Yeah, it's true. The craziest things become the most normal things over time as the technology drifts into our lives and becomes part of our everyday. And I think as we get further into the show and we talk about these marketing visions of the future, we'll get a little more into that idea.
Yeah. So the next item on our list is we're each going to share one prediction for something we think will happen related to marketing or branding or advertising or maybe even social media over the course of the next decade. So what do you think, Shad?
This one I thought a lot about. What will the next phase of websites look like? I feel like company websites, as they've existed for the past decade, have reached their limitations or have gotten a little stale. We're ready for the next phase that are going to do something different. But I'm not completely sure what that is yet. You know what I mean? How that will totally look on a wider scale. That was my first path I went down. Where I ended up was what I think is, and this is already happening a little bit, is our products are going to start talking to us more. And what I mean by that is, maybe deodorant and toothpaste that tell us when they're almost empty. Items in our fridge pinging our phones when it's time for a refill, or even just reordering themselves. This may require, new packaging tech, small chips that go in everything, AI, phone interaction. The key here is consumers not having to do it themselves. It's all working by itself. When you're getting the product, it's all set up to automatically do these things so that people are doing less. There's less of these, I have to go do this. I have to pick up my phone. I have to scan something. I have to go to a website. I have to order a product. Instead of 5 steps, things are going to get reduced to 1 step, and that's going to happen on a sort of packaging level, or when you get these products, the brand is going to be more intertwined in your life. So it's all going to become more common, more simple, and more consumer beneficial. And kind of a secondary result of this is that all this information, for better or worse, is going to be used to create more specific brand profiles of customers. Shad uses X toothpaste, eats X yogurt, buys X printer ink. How brands use that will be interesting to see. In some ways, the good, create more personal interaction, giving you more of what you want, and creating a better experience for each customer, tailored to each customer. The bad is obviously that elimination, breaking down of more of those privacy walls that some people still have a problem with, and is a barrier that a lot of people have to overcome. What do you think about that, Patrick? We're already seeing a lot of that happen. I'm talking about it going to kind of a next level within the next 10 years.
Yeah, and I think that that's totally possible. I think the data and the access to that data is going to be the thing that's going to drive businesses moving forward, right? I think that's going to be the power move for most brands going into the future, is like, how do we get this data on our customers so that we can do these things? So who has that information and who's sharing it with those brands, I think is going to be really important, right?
Yeah, definitely. So what about you? What did you have for your prediction for the next decade in marketing, advertising, and branding?
Well, I actually looked at advertising because advertising is going through a major shift. We've seen it. We've talked about it on the podcast in the past. We're likely going to see more entertainment-focused advertising, blurring the lines between what's entertainment and what is true advertising. You and I have talked about specific examples before, and it becomes more and more of our everyday reality, right? I mean, we're seeing it more today, and we were talking about it back in 2012, 2013, and look at us today. Brands like an article on Speaking Human about the Hennessy brand, and Ridley Scott directed this commercial for them, or this ad spot. It sort of bridges that gap between entertainment and advertising.
Yeah, or even on the larger scale, a brand like Apple, who's finally plunged full on into the delivering entertainment content game.
Yeah. But then more importantly, I think that advertising opportunities will move. This is more of a technical side of it, but I think they're going to move more into this augmented reality space, which is what we're going to, I think, see in this decade. Customized to each person, bridging this gap between flat and virtual. You're talking about websites and stuff, and what is the next iteration of that? I think that's what we're going to see. Our technology is going to go from what we see on our phones to whether it's a lens, like a contact lens, or these glasses, like augmented reality glasses, like Google Glass, where you're seeing it in front of you and you're interacting with your information and your data and advertising in a totally different way. I think that's what we're going to start to see, this transition now into the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's so funny. I've been thinking lately about Google Glass and how it's kind of considered a flop right now. And I just think by the end of the 2020s, this is going to be one of those products that we're just going to look back on as being so far ahead of its time. It needed to come to break that barrier, but nobody was ready for it. Because there's going to be some version of that at one point that is a huge hit.
There's so many things. People have to be ready mentally. This fear or skepticism has to subside, and it takes time for that, right? Like online banking or self-driving cars and even phones like 20 years ago. Think about phones. People didn't all have phone connected to them all the time. So the next iteration of that, I think, is going to be that augmented reality, looking through another lens as opposed to looking at your screen on your smartphone.
Yeah, it'll definitely get there. And this could be the decade where it happens.
I think so. It takes time for people to be able to accept it. I think 2030, you and I are going to look backward and be like, I told you.
We were right. Because we'll talk different too. Because we'll have accents. I don't know. Something about the future. Well, in a minute, we'll look back on how a handful of brands from the past painted a picture of the future. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsor.
Today's sponsor is Farmers Insurance. Insurance can be confusing, overwhelming, and time-consuming. At Hire Insurance Agency, we remove the guesswork and hassle, helping you protect what matters most. We offer a wide range of auto, home, business, and life insurance policies to help you meet your specific needs. Call 844-543-3463 or visit hireinsurance.com. That's HYRE insurance.com for more information.
So, Shad, I think this is my favorite part of the episode today. We're talking about brand visions of the future, and we're going to share a couple commercials, ads, videos, or whatever created by brands showing specific visions of the future.
Yeah. Do you want to kick this off here?
Yeah. The one that I picked as my number one, and really the strongest, is the Samsung Galaxy The Future commercial ad spot.
When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what will I be?
Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Is what she said to me. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera.
Do you remember this one?
Yeah, it was a good one.
So first, this ad is great. I chose this one because it's basically Samsung's predictions for the future of technology, and specifically technology that they can influence through their own devices, through their own inventions and innovations. The first example in the ad is a little girl riding around in her home on a big wheel, and the phone in her backpack prompts a display of animated characters on the windows in her home. The second, a fashion designer who's using large vertical monitors to design a new outfit. And then third, a tattoo artist who at first glance looks like he's designing something on his tablet, only to find that he's remotely tattooing someone. A real life tattoo with a robotic arm somewhere else. What? You know, an ultrasound device connected to a smartphone, augmented reality games are in this commercial. It's a pretty fantastic ad spot altogether with the best tie-in that a brand could attempt. What we create today lets you create the future. So I chose this one because it's a solid commercial about the future of technology, and it's grounded in reality. I really like that part of it. You know, it's something that you can see. It's a little bit far off into the future, but not that far. And it's something that's totally feasible and completely connected to the brand itself, which is Samsung. You know, Samsung devices and innovations appear throughout the commercial. It seems like a natural extension of what they do already. So,
yeah, I really liked that commercial too. I like how they keep it grounded to their devices and the technology that they're already working on. But I will say in general, you know, looking at and doing research for this, I like when brands do this kind of aspirational style of marketing where it's, you know, we're trying to create this future world. We're trying to create this better world. This is what we're working on. This is how it will benefit you. This is how it will make things different or better or impact the future. I don't think we see enough of that. I like seeing these things with these positive, innovation-focused ideas in them. I really enjoy that. I think we need more of that.
Yeah, I agree. And, gets people thinking about it. And then it breaks down that barrier, that fear barrier a little bit more, so that when those innovations are introduced at some point in the future, it's not going to be so foreign. So,
yeah. And if it does happen, you can also be like, we called that.
Yeah. So what do you have on your list?
So what I had for my first one is I took it back to the 1950s, which is pretty far back for most of us. And I went with an overall concept that was adopted by several brands at that time. Brands like Maytag, Whirlpool, and Frigidaire.
No need for the bride to feel tragic. The rest is push-button magic. So whether you bake or broil or stew, the Frigidaire kitchen does it all for you. Don't have to be chained to the stove all day. Just set the timer and you're on your way. Tick-tock, tick-tock. I'm free to have fun around the clock.
The kitchen of the future. Now, this was a design concept at the time that was aimed at housewives, showing a kitchen that was largely automated, freeing them from spending all day in the kitchen while still looking nice and clean. This was a kitchen where things would emerge up or come down from the ceiling and do everything that someone would have to do in the kitchen, but automate those tasks, So it's like instead of beating eggs yourself, it would do it for you. You'd have kind of a revolving refrigerator that could fit so much more food, ovens that could cook quicker, all about doing things faster, easier, and keeping you from being tied to the kitchen all day. And at the time, all these different brands were positioning this different idea and creating these concepts for ads, for trade shows. None of them were real, mind you. When they did this, it was all created through trickery because they didn't actually have this technology, but it was more just selling people on the vision of what could be. One effort in particular I'll spotlight came from Frigidaire, which was owned by General Motors. And so they had the Kitchen of Tomorrow. And the Kitchen of Tomorrow was featured in a 1956 GM video called Design for Dreaming, which you can look up on the web. And this video features a woman singing and dancing through the kitchen of tomorrow using some of its features. Pushing a button and a mixer emerges, walking past a rotating fridge, putting dinner in an electric countertop oven before running off to do whatever the thing she wants to do because she's not stuck in the kitchen all day. So I just thought this was a really interesting thing that goes back 70 years. Seeing how solving the needs of a specific audience in that day by showing them what the future could look like. And I just thought that was kind of fascinating.
Yeah, it's fun to watch those really old ad spots, especially when you go back that far, 50, 60, 70 years. They seem so...
From another time. I mean, literally from another time, but almost from another world in some ways, right?
Yeah. It's neat to see how humanity was envisioning the future and making people's lives simpler, because isn't that really what all branding and advertising is really promoting? So a kitchen is a great example because it's some place that you have in your home that you use every day. And so if those appliances can make your life easier, that's a huge win.
Yeah.
So my second, to me, a little bit of a cheat because it's not specifically for a brand, but it's for Expo 2020 in Dubai.
We humans, we've come a long way to get where we are today. Looking back, it's hard to believe what we have achieved. What drives us forward? What spurs us on? It's our insatiable need to learn and know, to do and grow, to twiddle and tweak, and 2.0. We humans, we're never done. We've made monuments and cut through continents, mastered human flight, sent up satellites, walked in outer space, created user interface, built cities on sand, turned sea into land, and still, we're not done. We made levitating trains and open world games, constructed super towers and grids for solar power, made houses smart, turned food into art, built self-driving cars and taught bots to play guitars. But no, we're not done. We found cures for disease, performed symphonies, probed the ocean floors, made machines do our chores, deconstructed quarks, studied great white sharks, sequenced our genomes, and even 3D printed homes. Are we done yet? Oh no, we're not done. In fact, we need to do even more than ever before. Our planet is in need of help. There are challenges we can't ignore. But remember, we are humankind. No job's too big if we set our minds. If we all embrace the spirit that there really is no limit. If we rise to this occasion and come together across nations. If we integrate and ideate, we can make the future great.
So this spot is really just fun to watch. It feels inspiring, and it has a combination of looking back on human accomplishments and looking to the future. It doesn't necessarily show a future that hasn't happened yet, but it's promoting the advancement of humankind and making the future great. And then it has this final tagline of welcome the future. And so it's for Expo 2020, which is this year in Dubai. And, you know, Dubai is obviously a very futuristic city where they're building architecture that is just beyond anything from this time. They're really looking to the future. So I go back to your word aspirational. It makes you feel good about humanity working together. And not just through technology and consumerism type things, but also helping the environment and making the earth a better place. All the things that mankind is trying to accomplish, all leading to a place where if we work together, we can accomplish great things. You know, it's just very positive and aspirational, like you were talking about before.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good choice. Good choice. The thing I love about these lists is we always, come at it from different directions, and it always leads to different picks. I always think we might fall in the same places with our choices, and we don't. Other than when it's Tom Selleck's mustache.
Or Tom Cruise. Anything with Tom.
Yeah, unless it's a Tom, we're going in different places.
Yeah. So what do you have then on your second?
My second pick, which I thought you might pick, was the AT&T You Will series from the 1990s. Are you familiar with this one at all?
Have you ever kept an eye on your home when you're not at home? Or gotten a phone call?
Hello. How was your day?
On your wrist?
Beautiful.
You will. And the company that'll bring it to you, AT&T.
Your true voice.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that one, yeah.
So this is a series of commercials that aired in 1993 that are pretty amazing to watch now for how accurately they actually predict the future. The setup for all the ads is the same. So we have a narrator who is actually, get this, Tom Selleck, who asks, have you ever done X? So it'll be like, have you ever watched the movie you wanted to the minute you wanted to? And they'll show a vision of the future of that thing happening. So it'll be like a kid touching a large screen and turning on the movie he wants to watch, right? And then he says, you will. A lot of them are dead on with the future that ended up happening. Not all of them, but a lot of them. The one part the ad always gets wrong is at the end of the commercial, they say, and the company that will bring it to you is AT&T. Not totally. But I'll just tell you some of the things they show. So I mentioned the one about, watching a movie you wanted exactly when you wanted. That was one of them. So keep in mind, this is in 1993 before a lot of these things came about. Learning special things from faraway places. So then they show online learning. Tucked your baby in from a phone. Kept an eye on your home when you're not at home. Gotten phone calls on your wrist. Opened doors with the sound of your voice. Conducted business in a language you don't understand. So those are just some of the examples of the things they say. So a lot of them, it just feels very predictive of what's happening right now or has happened actually in the last 10 years. And this is, 27 years before a lot of these things became commonplace. So the commercials, in general, beyond just being spot on in a lot of their predictions, they have a great visionary tone. What we've talked about with all these things, it makes you excited for the future. That optimism for what's ahead instead of, feeling negative about the world. You leave watching that with you're like, oh man, I'm excited for what's next. I'm excited for what's coming, and I'm excited for technology instead of feeling like it's destroying my privacy in my life. It's taking away all my time. You're actually excited for what technology is going to bring to you and how it's going to add to your life, even if they didn't come directly from AT&T.
I think being positive about the future and how these things could positively affect your life, not infect, but affect your life, gives people a good feeling, which is essentially what you're always trying to do, right? With a brand is to make people feel good about the brand and their interactions and engagement with it. And AT&T, being obviously a big global brand, they're not necessarily embedded in all of those technologies, but they might have a hand to play in the execution of them, you know what I mean, from a communication standpoint.
And they may have definitely helped push some of this technology forward. Nevertheless, that put aside, it was a great ad series, and it really holds up very historically well, too, looking back on it now.
Yeah, I love the predictions were all very close, and that Tom Selleck voiced it.
Yeah, age is like fine wine right there.
Tom Selleck or his mustache voiced that spot.
Whichever one of them did a fantastic job.
So those are really good. Well, on that note, then let's get our final nugget of human wisdom. Human wisdom.
For our human wisdom today, we have a few different nuggets to leave you with. We task ourselves with each creating 2 tweet-linked predictions for the coming decade using the hashtag 2030 predictions. There were no limitations on these. They could cover any topic or area. So what did we come up with, Patrick? Do you want to take turns on these, go back and forth?
Yeah. So my first tweet is, I just saw my life flash before my eyes. Literally. My new augmented reality lenses rotated through my photo gallery from the last 20 plus years. Plus, it just did a little impromptu fortune telling. So now I'm in the future. Hashtag 2030 predictions.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Yours are probably better than mine. Getting worried. My first one, Amazon, Apple, and Google will go to war. 2 will survive, team up, and take over the universe. Hail Google. Hashtag 2030 predictions.
Ah, I like that. Google.
Goopple.
Ah, I bet you somebody's got that domain name. I know they do.
Well, you could get Hail Google.
Hail Google. Yeah, I'm sure somebody has that too. I'm gonna venture.
Yeah, good point.
I like that one a lot, and not far off.
Yeah, well, in my mind, here's how it played out. It's a 3-way war, right? Amazon's super powerful, so they're beating everybody. Apple and Google are like, we're going to get crushed here. We need to team up. So then they team up to take down Amazon, and that's how they end up becoming Google. That's how it kind of plays out.
I like that. I like that you have a backstory. You have a whole idea of how that takes place.
Couldn't fit it all in the tweet, but that's how the story, if somebody's writing the book, that's the plot.
Oh, I like it. You need that. You need the backstory. It gives, the actors and the directors some understanding what are the motivations of the characters in the story.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So my second tweet, who said they were afraid of AI taking over? My assistant is an invaluable part of my day. Today, I'm free from my desk and keyboard because Betty, stands for Becoming Evolved Through Intelligent Engineering, took care of all of my admin tasks. Hashtag 2030 predictions. I thought you'd be especially proud of the acronym Betty, because Betty's my assistant.
Oh, is that an acronym?
It's an acronym, BETIE, Becoming Evolved Through Intelligent Engineering.
Oh, okay. I like that. You made up the acronym?
Yeah.
Talk about backstory. That's amazing.
I felt like, we're storytellers here, Shab.
Yeah.
Which is clear to our listeners because we've created backstories for a tweet. That's the ultimate storytelling.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. And now for the final tweet that will sink the whole project here. All music will be destroyed except for the songs of Jamiroquai. And the future will truly be made of virtual insanity. Hashtag 2030 predictions. Do you remember that song, Virtual Insanity?
Yes, by Jamiroquai. Yeah. I remember the video, actually, back when music videos were a thing.
Yeah, where he's like sliding around the room.
Yeah, that's something right there that people didn't predict. Music videos went away, really, right?
Oh, I thought you said I would use Jamiroquai in a tweet.
Well, nobody ever predicted that. The fact that anybody would even use Jamiroquai in a tweet is
completely unpredictable.
Yeah, you just made the impossible possible.
Bringing Jamiroquai back, baby.
So what's the backstory on that? So all the music is going to be gone?
Somebody on the internet pressed the wrong button, All music is destroyed except for Jamiroquai.
Oh, all music is destroyed except for Jamiroquai. Well, yeah, that's totally possible.
Could happen. Like
All
CDs and records, I can't explain how they get destroyed.
So it's like a Fahrenheit 451.
Maybe here's what happens. Maybe the lead singer of Jamiroquai gets like elected president.
Yeah, president of the world.
And he's like, get rid of all the other music. President Jamiroquai, what should we do with these records? Burn them!
Yeah, or he decides to teleport them all into outer space.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Here's the backstory. The lead singer of Jamiroquai invents teleportation, makes it possible. People are so impressed with this, he's elected free leader of the world. He abuses his power and uses it to get rid of all the music in the world other than Jamiroquai by teleporting it to an unknown location. Any other music is like gone underground, or like people are like sneaking it around. Every day in the background, it's just Jamiroquai playing in the background.
Yeah, they're trying to make new music, but it's like when you're trying to sing a song and something else is playing and all you can hear is that song. So people are just repeating Jamiroquai lyrics and playing the same music. Yeah. So it's always the same song.
Even commercial jingles have to go to like Jamiroquai tunes.
Wow, that's an oddly great story.
Yeah, realistic?
Not realistic necessarily, but
could happen.
I like it because it's absurd.
Absurdly real.
Yeah, just like the music video that he was in.
Virtual insanity.
Well, I think, we've covered a lot of future, a lot of predictions, a lot of this decade and beyond, all within an episode of the Speaking Human podcast. What do you think?
Amazing.
Amazing. One word, Jamiroquai. Well, that's it for today's episode, everyone. You can find current and past episodes of the podcast on speakinghuman.com. While you're there, head on over to the Buzz section throughout the month of January to see our picks for brands set to make some noise in 2020 and beyond.
And beyond. We'll be back in the future, which will soon be the past, with another episode of Speaking Human. Catch you then, humans.
Speaking Human.